Hello everybody, my name is Brianna Bilo and I'm a meteorologist here with the National Weather Service office in Grand Junction, Colorado, and this is your November 2025 monthly weather summary. So starting off for our story of the month, we actually have the show-stopping aurora. So this isn't weather in the traditional sense, this is technically space weather, but it still counts. So in the days leading up to Tuesday, November 11th, we actually had two what are known as coronal mass ejections, or CMEs. They're basically a giant release of charged particles from the sun that both happen to be pointed right at Earth at roughly the same, and they were expected to arrive at roughly the same time. And as a result, when these really highly charged particles from the sun interact with our magnetic field around the Earth, one of the things that happens is you can get the aurora borealis, and in the southern hemisphere, the aurora australis. There are other impacts that happen, such as issues with communications, with electrical grids, stuff like that, which is why we have the Space Weather Prediction Center, specifically to help mitigate impacts from these sorts of things for infrastructural elements, as well as helping the public know when they can go out and see some pretty awesome aurora. These aurora, people were able to see these as far south as northern Florida and Alabama. People were able to see these with the naked eye in extremely light polluted areas such as metropolitan Chicago and Seattle. The only places that it seemed they weren't able to see the aurora on this night were places where it was cloudy. Unfortunately, my parents were among that group, but here on the western slope in eastern Utah and western Colorado, we really got treated. This photo is actually from one of my coworkers. It was taken here in the Grand Valley in the North Fruta Desert. I was also out for this evening. I went to Colorado National Monument and I got to see it as well. Unfortunately, my personal camera, my nice one, the battery was dead and my spare battery was still at home, but I got a few okay-ish pictures on my phone and I got to see it with my own eyes, and that was really special to me because having grown up in the Northeast and never having seen the aurora is a little bit of something. So I finally can say that I've seen the aurora borealis. And there were so many people out on this night, just everywhere. There were people all up and down the monument. There were people all over north of town, across the deserts. We were getting photos from all across the area. In fact, it was my parents who called me to say, hey, you should go take a look at the aurora, because they were seeing photos from out on the Front Range of the Northern Lights. And I've gone through this routine before where my parents say, hey, you should go take a look, and I go out and I can't really see anything and you need a phone to see stuff. So I was kind of whatever. I stepped out into my backyard, and I live in Grand Junction, so like it's relatively light polluted. I walk out in my backyard and there they are. So definitely a pretty magical experience, and if any of you have never seen the lights and you get the chance, you hear that the lights are going to be out there, definitely go. Even if it ends up being less spectacular than this, if you get the chance to see the lights, for sure, definitely go see them. Moving into our more usual part of this, we have our high temperatures for the month of November. So the highest high was 72, and this occurred both at Canyonlands Airport near Moab and at Cortez Montezuma County Airport in Cortez, Colorado. In Canyonlands, this occurred on the 5th, and in Cortez, it occurred on the 3rd. But these are all really mild temperatures for the month of November. Our highest high was 66 in Vernal on the 4th. You can see that these were all clustered in that 2nd to the 5th kind of period, which is kind of carrying off of the warm stretch we had at the end of October. But the month of November actually ended up being very mild. We saw a prolonged period of time where our highs were 5 to 10 degrees above normal, and we really struggled to see any lows close to normal through much of the month. Our lowest low occurred in Craig on the 9th, and that was at 10 degrees. And our warmest low was Canyonlands on the 29th, and that was 37. But you can these are chilly lows, don't get me wrong, but when you compared them to where our lows were supposed to be. These are 10, some cases 15 degrees above where they should have been during the month of November. And as a result of this, our temperature departures, so our mean temperature departures and our high and low temperature departures, were on average 5 to 7 degrees above normal. You can actually see that information in the write-up that's linked in the description here. If it's got some different information from the videos, it's got some expansions of information from the videos. It's definitely worth taking a look at, but it gives you departures so you can see where we were compared to normal, and we were above normal in the month of November, for better or for worse. Looking at precipitation, a little bit of a mixed bag, definitely not as slam dunky as last month was, but that was because we had those two tropical systems bring some substantial moisture into the region. The fact that we even saw 3 locations see above normal precipitation, that's not that bad, because the month of November was not only warm, but it was relatively dry. It was characterized by some significant periods of high pressure where there just wasn't a lot of precipitation. And on the balance, 7 of our 10 sites did come in below normal, so overall we were drier than normal. Our big winner for the month was Cortez with 1.15 inches as a total, and this was 0.36 inches above normal. And at the bottom we have Rifle, who managed only 0.2 of an inch of precipitation, and that was a little over 0.4 of an inch below normal. Aspen has been struggling lately. The Central Mountains just have been struggling in general because of where we've been getting our moisture. They've kind of been losing no matter what. Happy to say Vernal is not dead last for once, and Vernal came in relatively close to normal for the month of November. I know I bring this up like every video, but the beginning of the year for Vernal was really a struggle. There were several months in a row where they only had a trace as their total monthly precipitation. So it's nice to see Vernal not in dead last and actually having some moisture. Canyonlands, Grand Junction, both came in above normal. For surprisingly, the central western Colorado, eastern Utah, the I-70 corridor actually did reasonably well. We had a couple of systems that came through with just the right wind direction to really favor this region, which is a bit of a rarity because it's easier to get, areas that are favored by southwesterly flow, which is fairly common, or northwesterly flow, which is fairly common, are pretty widespread. Areas that are favored by direct westerly flow, not as common. It doesn't happen as often, and it really is the I-70 corridor that's directly favored by that. So we did at least see that, and a lot of this has to do with the storm that we saw right at the end of the month on the 29th and the 30th, which really impacted travel along I-70 all the way from Grand Junction up to Vail Pass. There were multiple pileups, including in Glenwood Canyon. Not the best time to be traveling. Unfortunately, it was also Thanksgiving weekend, so it is what it is. Moving into our drought update. As far as the actual drought is concerned, we have seen a little bit of an expansion in this D0 abnormally dry conditions across southeast Utah, southwest Colorado, and up into the central portions of the region. And a lot of this is in response to that above normal moisture we saw along the I-70 corridor here. And we have actually nibbled away a little bit at more of that D3 extreme drought. So we've nibbled a little bit here, and we've nibbled a little bit here. And if you watched last month's video, then you know that there was a pocket out here that is now completely gone. So on the whole, relatively unchanged, but a few places where minor improvements have occurred. And as far as drought tendency, where there is drought, so D1 or worse, we are expecting that to persist. Where there is not drought, so no drought or D0 conditions, that is expecting to not redevelop drought conditions. So status quo, essentially, as we move into December. And then a snowpack update. We actually get to do this again, but it's not great news. As far as Utah is concerned, southeastern Utah is doing okay. They're at 91% of normal for the time of the year. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that the La Salles and the Abajos did really well and the rest of the zone isn't doing great. Duchesne Basin, 49% of normal. Northeastern Uinta is 58% of normal. So in that around 50 to 60% of normal for this time of year. Not awesome, but it could be worse. We did in November see a couple of southwesterly flow storms, so ARs that came up through the LA basin and really kind of slammed into the southern San Juans. So the Gunnison Basin and the San Miguel de los Animas and San Juan basins doing okay. San Miguel de los Animas, San Juan at 68% of normal, Gunnison at 56% of normal. With those southwesterly flow storms, naturally the northern mountains and the central mountains did not get to take advantage of a lot of that moisture. It got really wrung out over these ranges, and not a lot made it all the way up here. So Yampa White Little Snake and Colorado headwaters in that 30 to 40% of normal range. Not doing so hot, but we have seen as we've moved into December a few more northwesterly flow storms, which will favor those regions a little bit more. So hopefully that snowpack percentage will start to creep up. But we'll see. Unfortunately, we remain in a La Nina type year, which overall favors slightly drier conditions, overall favors warmer conditions, and if it had to pick one, would traditionally favor the northern and central mountains a little bit more as the whole storm track gets shifted north, and that favors these northwesterly flow events far more than the southwesterly flow events. Then again, we've seen a few southwesterly flow events already, so could be anyone's game. And then for the outlook for December, the Climate Prediction Center is favoring above normal temperatures. It's only a modest tendency. It's a 40 to 50% leaning towards above normal temperatures with lesser chances of above normal as you move north and east. As far as precipitation is concerned, though, they are favoring equal chances of above or below normal precipitation, which simply means there's no strong signal either way. If you actually go to the Climate Prediction Center and take a look at the whole country graphic, you'll see that northern tier favored for above normal precipitation, southern tier favored for below normal precipitation, and that's a pretty classic La Nina type pattern. What is interesting is that there's no real clear signal for us as far as either tendency, which means it could go either way, and that's good news for us because it does mean that we might be able to see some better precipitation as we move deeper into the winter, which will be great for skiers, it'll be great for drought conditions, and it'll make my job a little more interesting. Being high and dry is great for getting work done, but it's not exactly the most interesting job in the world when we're just sitting under high pressure and temperatures are above normal. So we shall see. And with that, I will leave you until next month with the December wrap-up. There is a seasonal summary coming out for the fall season, so September, October, November. That will also be posted to YouTube, and there will be a write-up for it. And once we get to the end of December, it's annual time, so we'll do an annual summary product that'll get published. And then, considering the kind of year we've had, I'm thinking about doing a top 10 weather events type deal because, we had tornadoes, we've had severe hail, we've had some pretty extreme flooding, we had the aurora, we've had heat, we've had wildfires. So it might be a good year to break out the top 10, even if it's not in any specific order, or maybe just pick like a top event from each month, something like that. So stay tuned, that might be coming in January. And I will see you in the seasonal video, and I'll see you next month. Have a good one, everybody.